Hi there, and welcome to today's conversation where we chat with Mary Walker, who is an independent RV lifestyle consultant, travel blogger, and full-time RVer since 2017. So, this is definitely my kind of a conversation, geeking out and exploring how the life on the road compares between my experiences here in Europe and Mary's experiences over in the US, comparing the sizes, the distances, the experiences. Obviously, she has done it with her partner for longer, and we loved learning about her mission to help other RVers to live the life that they really want, the reasons for going into RV, and why she is so passionate about helping families find freedom, connection, and confidence on the road without sacrificing the comforts of a home. So, if this is something that sounds interesting to you, or if, like Natalie, you may be a little bit on the fence of living in a small little moving tin can on a wheel, then pull up a chair, grab a cuppa, and give us a listen.
But before we get into the conversation, subscribe, like, share this video because we really do want to reach those people who need to hear what our guests have to say. We have some amazing guests. And best of all, it's free. All you got to do is click that mouse and then you can subscribe and then you will then get notified when new videos go up. So please, we would love for you to help us to just reach more and more people because our guests are so amazing. Like the one we have today, a tin can on wheels. Wow, what more could one want? So let's get into this beautiful conversation.
Hi, Mary. Welcome to the show.
Hi, and thank you for having me.
It's so excited to have you here. So, for our listeners, could you please tell us a little bit more about yourself, who you are, what you do, and kind of what gives you the fire in the morning, what gives you the inspiration, motivation to just, go and do your thing and show up? I'm always excited to hear people's kind of motivation and inspiration.
Yes, well, we have been full-time RVers for 9 years now. And we started RVing because we had lost my sister at the age of 51. And then 3 years later, her husband passed at 55. Tim's brother was killed by a drunk driver at the age of 27. And they all had dreams, what they were going to do in their lives, and they never got to do them. And we decided one day that we were going to do what we wanted to do. And we actually did it because our family is spread across the country. I had one son in Florida, one son in Kansas, his son's in California. Our parents were between Buffalo, New York, and Florida. And it's like, okay, we're going to buy an RV. Our neighbor came home with an RV that he had rented, and it's like, well, that's interesting. So we started looking into it and found that, okay, well, we're going to give it a shot. And that was 9 years ago. So we did it in 6 weeks. Sold the house, packed up, and said, we're going to come and visit, which actually works out better because we see them more. This year, for instance, this past year in May, I was able to celebrate my grandson's 11th birthday in Florida. A week later, we were in Kansas for my oldest grandson's high school graduation. And it just made sense for now, and we're loving it, and we still have quite a few things to see. Before that, he was a truck driver. I was a waitress, and then I owned a snack bar once we moved to Florida, and said, no, we'll just find something to do. And, if we need to make some money, do some remote work, and here we are.
That's incredible. I think your story is not too dissimilar from my journey into van life because I do live in a van as well. Not for so long. It's been just over a year for me, but my journey into kind of chasing the dream, following the dream, or living the life that is true to myself has been through similar traumas and losses. My father passed away in 2018, quite unexpectedly. My mom had an accident a year later, which left her paralyzed. She recovered, but those moments for me were like my parents spent their whole life chasing money and building savings and building security. And my dad always said, well, I'm gonna travel, I'm gonna visit you when I'm in retirement. And he never got to retirement. And I could see it in my mom's, like we had savings, we had stuff, the money was there, and she was still working herself pretty much to death. And I was like, I don't want any of that. Like, I don't want the money. I want to live life. And that's where I started initially a bit more digital nomading, like flying from place to place, really decided, chosen how to run my business and what kind of a business I want to do. And that's where, when then the opportunity finally came and the space, mom has recovered and is capable of being on her own, I decided to do the same. Like, I don't want to anymore to fly to like Southeast Asia and be too far from family. But for me, luckily, Europe is small enough to drive around in a van and still be close enough to Czech Republic to my mom, and I can always within a couple hours driving pretty much be back home. And I'm curious to know, because obviously US has a much bigger distances than we have here in Europe. I'm always interested in comparing kind of van life and obviously RV life. How is it in the US? What facilities, how have you found this kind of a journey into RV? Because it is a massive shift to go from I have a home, I have all my, water unlimited, electricity unlimited, internet unlimited. We don't take those things for granted to then, well, where am I going to spend the next night, what facilities I have there. I would love to know a little bit about your journey into how have you settled into the RV life? What were the things that you maybe found surprisingly difficult and some surprisingly easy and enriching? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, when we plan our trips, we usually do about 10,000 miles a year. We plan a little bit. Sometimes we're in a campground with full hookups. Other times we'll just boondock. We have everything we need in the RV, pretty much like you have in your van. So it's just I mean, we can boondock for a week if we wanted to, but it's a little bit of everything. And when we did transition though, I do have a lot of stuff. I will admit I'm still have a lot of stuff, and I still have storage units that I don't know why. But yeah, I'm working on that.
And was there something specifically that you found an interesting shift from obviously living in a house and possibly traveling around, cars and planes and visiting people differently, then now you're bringing your whole home with you. You're working from your home. You're spending time in, this, I don't know, slightly bigger metal can, but still it's a limited amount of space. So can you tell our listeners a little bit more about, how does this transition has been for adapting to the space, the size, the movement?
Adapting to the size, we actually started with a 35 foot. We had 3 RVs in the first 3 years. So we started with a 35 foot, went to a 43-foot toy hauler because we thought we'd have more room. That was not true, surprisingly. And then we went to a Class A gas, which it was 35 feet. We had a little bit more storage in that one. And then we upgraded to a Super C, which gives us more room because it has opposing slides. So we have more like living space. But there's quite a bit of storage in here too. But what makes it so much easier is when we go visit, like when we visit my son in Kansas, we park right in his yard. We don't have to impose on them. We have our own shower, our own bathroom. The kids can come, my grandkids come over and visit us. If they want to sleep over, they can, we have extra space. They can stay with us. They haven't traveled with us yet because, school and everything like that. But it's just so much easier just being right there, but not imposing on them.
Yes, and I I know that you also then turned your new lifestyle into a business and you then help others who possibly want to embark on the RV life, on the nomadic life to figure it out because there is a lot to figure out to get comfortable and familiar with. What are the biggest challenges and obstacles that people tend to face when wanting to embark on this lifestyle? And mostly thinking full time, if there's something different when you rent a van and you rent a motorhome and you spend the summer in it versus if you're truly deciding to give up your house, give up your apartments, and fully embrace the life on the road. What are the challenges and obstacles that you see people hitting most frequently, stopping them from taking the leap?
Yes. We, like, as I've said before, we took the leap in 6 weeks. So that meant clearing out a 3,200 square foot house in 6 weeks. We also purchased our RV online. So we didn't actually see it in person. And once we left our house, we loaded up a little U-Haul trailer with the things I thought I needed, drove, but it was about 500 miles, and unloaded that little trailer into this 35-foot tin can. Uh, Surprisingly, I had too much stuff in that little U-Haul trailer. So right from the get-go, I mean, and the day that we picked it up, we did not know how to even hook up the fifth wheel. The RV place was closing. Luckily, there was a guy waiting for us to leave and lock the gates. He helped us hook it up. There was just so many things that first day that we didn't know. We didn't have towing mirrors on our pickup truck. We didn't know we couldn't see behind a 35-foot fifth wheel. So as we drove from that location to our final destination, we're zigzagging down the highway so we could see what was behind us. And then that same day, we also had a flood in the kitchen when we got to our destination because we didn't know you were supposed to turn the water pump off. And the ice maker kind of flooded the kitchen, along with rainbow jimmies everywhere because the cupboard decided to open. So there is a lot to know that people don't realize, like we did not realize. So that is why I help aspiring RVers transition. I take and hold their hand to do this for six months. And you don't have to do it in 6 months. You can, wait till next year, but at least you have an idea of what you need to know.
I was very exciting and a lot of fun swerving, zigzagging
Yeah.
down the motorway. I'm just having visions because
Yeah.
it's like it's not as RVs are not small, and then you just
Yeah. That was not a fun day.
so I love the idea of a home on wheels, and I for years have watched these schoolie buses being converted into living spaces. I have seen a few RVs, but they're normally all, they're all ready. Whereas a scooty bus, they take up the chairs and put in the designers and everything else. Is there, other than the storage and the size, but an RV is like a really, really, really posh caravan and that has an engine on the front. It comes with everything in it. And as you said, your one has the expanding living space, where scooty buses are like a bus that's just been converted into a home. Is there a huge difference between RV living and a schoolie bus or even a van living? I mean, I know that's getting even smaller, but other than the logistics of driving or something, is there sort of a difference in mindset or the way that things happen? Is that something that you come across? Do you help people also to go from a house to like a schoolie bus, or do you just focus on RVs?
I don't think there's much difference between a schoolie bus and an RV or a van. I think, yeah, I mean, everything's contained as long as, you have your, whether it's a dry bath or a wet bath. It's pretty much the same. The only difference is that I want to bring up is somebody had transitioned a horse trailer into a living like an RV, like a schoolie bus, okay? And they had remodeled it. And the campground that we're in right now, because it did not have the RVIA sticker, which is required in the US, I don't know if it's required in Europe or not, but because it did not have that, they had to leave. Even though they were self-contained, everything, they had everything, the same thing that we had. So that's just one thing. If somebody's going to transform a schoolie bus or a horse trailer into an RV type thing, that's what they need to be aware of here in the US. And it's not all campgrounds, it's
Yeah.
some campgrounds.
Yeah. And I think it's an interesting conversation to look into the size differences because now here in Europe, the microvans are becoming a major trend where people are I'm impressed with the amount of people who are willing to live in a vehicle where they can't stand up. So I live in a very basic Ford Transit. So it's it's still a small van given the context, but I have headroom, I have space. But now here in Europe, we have a major trend for the smaller, low ceiling cars, microvans, becoming the starter, or rooftop tents as the basics for people. Then possibly looking into vans, looking into motorhomes. And obviously, there is a slight difference between sizes of everything in Europe versus US. Here in Europe, when you're doing van life, you often end up going to places like Spain or Italy or Greece with all little towns, with all little narrow roads, where anything beyond my van is fine often, but if you had slightly bigger ass or slightly longer something, motorhomes will struggle to turn around. And like these roads are very narrow, very tight. Um, so I'm curious to know, have you experienced kind of a variety of sizes in the US as well? Not I think it's similar to what Natalie was asking a little bit, but in terms of what is then the balance maybe between, RVs, motorhomes, vans, micro pop-up tents. I can see the landscape of people living nomadically changing drastically here in Europe. I'm curious to see what's happening, how you're seeing these types of lifestyles and the types of vehicles or homes on wheels evolving over in the US.
Yes, and that's one thing when people are first starting out, they need to know their travel style. Because if they want to, camp in the national parks, they need to, a lot of times they need to have a van. Microvans, I don't know that we have, and we might have microvans. I probably just never seen one, but like the roof tents, those are very popular on the Jeeps and things, so people can go into the national parks. Also, the vans are a lot easier to park. Like we can't take our motorhome into like Yellowstone and go see the geysers with it. So, but you can with your van. And I've seen some little towable ones that you definitely can't stand up. And it's like, I don't think I could. I'm 6 feet tall. I don't think I could even sleep in that. I'd be curled up in a little ball. But and everybody's different. If it's a single person, that might be what they like. That might be what they need, them and just their dog. And because every RVer has a pet here in the US. But the schoolies, I've seen schoolies that are absolutely gorgeous. They remodeled them and they're beautiful. Those might be hard to get into national parks and places like that too. There are some small towns. Usually when we go visit, and we're touring, we will park on the outskirts of a town and then just drive in with our toad. It just makes it easier for us because if we have a toad on the back, a vehicle on our back, we can't back up. So if we get caught in a situation where we can't turn around, we have to unhook, which takes time, and it's just a little annoying. So that's one thing, like if we're boondocking, that's the first question he asked. Did you look at Google Earth? Can I turn around without unhooking? So, I try my best. Sometimes it's kind of hard to tell how big the place is we're going to, but but yeah, that's the first thing that new RVers need to figure out is their travel style before they decide what kind of RV they want.
Yeah, exactly. Even here in Europe, I think for the microvans, it's very convenient that you can park in lots of parking lots and kind of go almost, it's not so obvious that it's a live-in vehicle, but also lots of towns or beaches or places of interest will have allocated normal parking with a height limit, which is about 2 meters, 2 meters 20, where a Jeep with a tent can fit in, possibly a microvan can fit in. We cannot fit in. And that immediately brings in like, do you go to cities? Do you go to nature? What kind of a lifestyle are you looking for? These kind of questions on the before you embark on the road are quite important to, yeah, understand. But what you said made me chuckle in there. The realization how much time you will be spending on your phone Googling on Google Earth and going through the parts to check. I'm checking it. Am I missing like any signage that says I should not go there? Is there a visible height limit that I cannot go there? Are the streets like they look decent? What is the surface? Is it gravel? Is it sand? Is it muddy? It's one thing I did not realize is how much time I will be spending on my phone looking for park ups, looking for facilities where can I empty water, top up water, get some electricity, and yeah, looking at what is the parking situation? Can I fit in? How do I drive there? Are there any other unexpected little, things about this lifestyle that surprises you that you were maybe not prepared for? One is the driving, which I get. I've experienced something similar when I drove in the UK. So I drove an European vehicle on the wrong side of the road, which is doable, but there are a couple of situations where you have blind spots, especially as a single person, if I don't have a passenger who can help me look into my blind spots. So curious to know, is there anything else similar to these kind of unexpected surprises of this lifestyle that you had to learn to overcome or just adapt to?
There's a lot of places we like to stick to the interstate just because we're like the height of a semi. So we like to stick to interstates. There's a lot of people that take the back roads. There are apps and like the Garmin specifically made for RVs that you put your height in so you know if there's any low bridges. But we've seen people that got to a point with a low bridge and they took off their air conditioners. So that's one thing that we have to be aware of, especially once we get off the interstate. But vans are becoming more popular here. I know that last year alone, Jayco had posted that 49% of their sales were vans. So there are more people that are, want to go to the national parks and, like we want to go to Alaska. I want to go to Alaska. I'm still trying to talk him into that. But, and there's people that will buy a second vehicle just to go to Alaska. They'll buy a van, they'll buy a truck camper to go, rather than taking this huge RV. But, I'm going to take my huge RV.
Is there a specific reason why people taking smaller vans to Alaska? Is it just the roads are different?
The roads we hear are supposedly bad. The Alaskan highway is the Can Am Highway, something it's called. But it's very rough. And people have posted like they go through tires and broken windshields and their RV just falls apart. So he doesn't want to wreck. He thinks that we're going to wreck. And then there's other people that say the roads aren't that bad. As long as you slow down, and you're fine. So it's a combination.
One thing I've in my trawling of schoolie buses being converted, I've seen people talking about RVs, and they often talk about these RV parks, and they're almost stationary most of the year, and they might just use so they live in their RV, but they don't use it for traveling other than maybe a couple of weeks in the summer or something. So they rent or they buy a plot and they just make it their home. So when you're traveling around, do you stay in these RV parks, or are there campgrounds that are more temporary so that you can stay in, and the RV parks are more for permanent residents as opposed to people just driving through town and passing through and want to spend a couple of nights? How do these RV parks actually work?
In the US, I don't know how it is in Europe or South Africa, but in the US, an RV park is the same as a campground, is the same as a resort. When you hear resort, people think, concrete pads and swimming pools and lazy rivers, and that's how a resort should be known for, but unfortunately, it's not. A resort can be just someplace to park overnight with full hookups. But most of the RV parks, campgrounds are you can stay in year round. We are in the winter. We stay here usually about 6 months in Florida. But we do come and go. Like January, we left for a couple weeks, went to the Tampa RV show. Next week we're leaving. We're gonna go south. So even though we are here for the winter, we still travel around Florida, and then we'll leave after my grandson's birthday in May. We're going west this year. And we will be there for a couple weeks in Texas, and then we're going to go north, and then we go east. So we do about 10,000 miles. We also have land up in New York where we can stay all summer if we wanted to, but we don't. We go for a couple weeks, visit our family up there. My sisters are still up there. Our parents have both passed, so that's not the reason we go up there anymore. But we used to stay for a couple months, but the difference there is also we do have electric, water, and sewer on our property up there. Some people will just have a piece of land where they just stay, boondock on. Some people have a piece of land that they rent out, when they're not using it. But RVs, campgrounds, resorts, they're pretty much all the same here in the US. Just different amenities.
If somebody's thinking about going from a brick house to a wheeled house and they're wanting to look into it, and it's obviously you are more transportable, you can travel around, and if you're needing to earn an income is having the logistics of Wi-Fi and how you're going to work it. But then there's also the logistics of where you're going to park up and the cost of that. Now, I know in the UK, it's getting more and more expensive to park up in your vans. And I think Lenka experienced that last year when she came for the summer. But Europe is much cheaper. She gets really good deals where she parks up. What is it like on average in the States to spend some time in a campground, or I gather boondocking, you can just find somewhere and park there for free. But if you're needing to top up your water or needing to top up your electricity or empty gray tanks and white tanks and black tanks and all sorts of tanks and deal with the stuff of living in a van, is it affordable? Is it a cheaper way of doing it than having rent and paying your bills? Or is it balances out? Just to get an idea, because I know so many people want to be doing it, but often it's the logistics and the finance behind it that can sometimes put people off.
Yes, and it can be more expensive than a mortgage, and it can be very cheap. Depends on how you do it. When we first started out, it was actually costing us more than our mortgage was, because we went to campgrounds all the time. There's campgrounds that are $100 a night, which is more than a hotel. That don't make sense, go sleep in a hotel. But like if you go down to the Florida Keys, you can spend $250 a night. It depends. If you want to be by the water, you're going to spend more money. But what we do is we alternate between the boondocking and the campgrounds. There's people that will do it's called Thousand Trails here membership, and you pay one fee for life. Well, I think it changed. I don't think you can get the lifetime membership anymore, but you pay the one fee. Like Tim's cousin, they paid $15,000 for the lifetime membership, and every 2 weeks they have to move. Now, I have a lot of stuff, so I'm not going to move every 2 weeks because I don't want to have to pack up and, pack everything up, put the slides in, unhook everything. And, I mean, we do it. We'll do it for one night, when we're traveling. But to do it all winter for 6 months, that's not something I want to do. But they love it. Every 2 weeks, they get to move to a new campground, and they have full hookups. And then another thing that we do, and it doesn't cost them anything. So other than that $15,000 that they originally, paid for it, it doesn't cost them anything every 2 weeks, so they can go all winter without paying any fees for the campgrounds. And so we pay, like, because we're seasonal, you get a better deal. So you can pay for a seasonal rate, you can pay $1,000 for the month and then divide that by 30 days or whatever. Some places are cheaper. When we're on the road, we will alternate between like a KOA or just a regular campground, and we'll spend maybe $75 a night. So if we're there for a couple nights And then we'll boondock with we do Harvest Hosts, which is a membership. I think we pay like $149 for the year. So we go and stay at like wineries, museums, farms, and you just have to, you patronize them. I mean, I'd rather spend $30 to go in and eat dinner, and then boondock for the night. And then, so if we do that for, say, 4 nights, and then we'll go to a campground, and that's where we'll fill up on our water and dump our tanks. So we alternate, so we don't have to. There are places, there's truck stops where you can dump your tanks and fill your water and stuff like that for, I think it's like $10. So it can be cheaper. His cousin, like I said, pays nothing for 6 months. Her original investment of $15,000, and they've been full-time for 4 years now. So, I mean, it can be. You just have to figure out your budget and what you want to spend. And would you rather have electricity, or are you okay with being out? We, like the last place we were at, we opened the door and we had mules right outside our door, and it's so awesome. One day we'll have cows outside our door, and it's just an awesome feeling to be able to do this instead of getting up, going to work, coming home, making dinner. And then on the weekends, you're off, you're taking care of your grass. When we had a house and we would go up north for the summer, we had to find somebody to take care of our grass, take care of our pool. We had to make sure our mail was being held. So it's like, why? Just, sell it and buy an RV and go.
It sounds very much, it's a learning experience. It's not you get into your RV and voila, you find all this out. It's obviously talking to other RVers and just finding what works, what doesn't work, and knowing how things work and where to go and what to do, and learn through experience and mistakes. But I guess that's all part of the adventure, is just the learning that you're doing until you find your groove, so to speak. You've been doing this for 9 years. You've learned along the way and know what works and what doesn't work. But you mentioned something very interesting, is your mail. Now, I know when I used to live in the UK, I've only recently come to South Africa, and Lenka came to the UK last year for the summer and traveled around and had parcels sent to my house, which she was going to come past and pick up when she drove past to leave the UK. How do you deal with mail? I mean, I know you've got a lot of family, but they're not just down the road that they can pick up your Amazon parcel and you can collect it. It's how do you deal with things like postage or mail or Amazon? I'm assuming you order stuff online. So the thing is things like that. How, if you are mobile, you don't have an actual address where things get delivered to. So how do you deal with that?
Well, for our regular mail, we actually started using My RV Mail, it's called, where you have your domicile. You pick your state, whether it's Florida, Texas, South Dakota. There's 3 that you can domicile in when you're an RVer. So we have our mail go to My RV Mail, and if we need to know something that we receive, they take a picture of it, they'll scan it for us. As for packages, Amazon packages, we if you're at a campground, you can get them delivered there. There are also Amazon lockers here. I don't know if you have those there, but other than that, some campgrounds will charge you $5 a package to deliver it. The campground we're at now does not. So, and I don't like to use family members' addresses for our mail because it can get confusing, especially with the RV registration and insurance. If somebody in the house had an accident, it can affect your insurance, even though you don't actually live there, but you're using their address. So we like to stay away from doing that. And like I said, with My RV Mail, we actually started using it when we still lived in the house, because when we would go up north, the post office always messed up our mail. So we came home to a mailbox full of mail, including checks and stuff. So it's like, yeah, that's not working. So
It's so interesting to really listen to the differences between kind of what I've seen and experienced is van life in around Europe, and obviously how Europe works and there are similarities among the states, how things are done here, what is possible, and versus how it works over the pond in the US. And it makes me think of, do you know of any van lifers, motorhomers who would have done the switch, who maybe came over to Europe, did a little bit of a touring around here, either shipped their own vehicle for longer periods of time or rented one, or the other way around, if you get any kind of Europeans coming over to the US and then having to learn the local system to, again, as a tourist or wanting to settle for shorter, longer periods of time. I'm curious to see how this across the pond differences can then impact one's experience of actually doing it on the ground.
Yeah, I don't know anybody that's done it personally, but I have read stories about YouTubers that have done it. Go from the US to Europe, and there was actually a couple that have come over from Europe. They did ship their own van. I don't know how much that cost. I don't know if I want to know that, but there's also one that I know of that went to Hawaii, and they rented a van there. And they absolutely loved it. They rented it for like 2 weeks and they stayed in the van versus a hotel. So that, I mean, that would be another thing to do, but we don't fly, so that's why we have an RV.
Yeah, that would be an interesting, I think it's becoming a lot more popular as well to travel in the way where you rent a van in the location, be it New Zealand, be it people go to lots of places where instead of taking local transportation, taking trains, taking planes, renting taxis. I've seen it in Japan. I've seen, yeah, the same. Like when you look on the internet on YouTube, there's lots of interesting experiences. In Iceland, it tends to be quite popular because again, you need more of a 4x4 quite capable vehicles to drive in certain locations like Iceland versus the rest of the Europe. We can survive with less capable cars that don't have the full 4x4 support. So it's interesting, yeah, to see that this is becoming a trend. But for you, you have still a massive continent possible to explore, where obviously you have US, which is huge. And you mentioned kind of going to Alaska. Is there kind of do you have a plan, or do you see people doing Canada or going through, Mexico down to southern, South America, going to explore? Definitely so many options still within one continent that don't mean shipping or flying.
Yes, we would definitely go through Canada to get to Alaska. And I know we don't have Mexico on our list as of right now, but I mean, we don't have any plans of any time stopping anytime soon. But we did just meet a gentleman that came over from Germany, him and his family. And rather than shipping his vehicle over, he actually bought one here. And we had just run into him, and he had gone to Iceland. He drove to Iceland, and he was showing us pictures, and it was absolutely gorgeous. And it's like, okay, I want to go there now. So it's on the list.
Think there's so many places around the world that are on the list. That yeah, then it becomes to what is again to the earlier question, what is the lifestyle you want to have? What do you really, how do you want to live? And yeah, do you have any limitations or restrictions, either given your size, given your work, but also given your choices in life? The same as you said, some people do not want to fly because whatever reasons. And then you have the options like, do I leave the continent I'm on? Where in for us in Europe, it's much easier. We have the whole of Africa. We can just take a ferry and go there. We have the whole of Asia to go there. But the same with you in the US, you do have a whole of Canada, which I can imagine will be, again, the landscapes, the nature there could be fascinating, even up and going over to Alaska. And yeah, the same if you would cross southern borders and go through the Central America to then explore, drive through Colombia and Chile and explore the southern. So I can imagine that. But without going more into what are the dreams or the plans, I'm curious, few highlight experiences or moments from your, 9 years on the road that really cemented and kind of the heartwarming moments. You're like, this is incredible. And we would not have had this experience have we lived in a house. And I understand that, meeting family and being flexible to just move around and see family could be one big, big thing. There's like, we're so grateful that we actually get to do this. We can live in our home with the family and see them. Are there any other moments or experiences that you had over the years that you're like, we wouldn't have, if we didn't take the leap, these experiences wouldn't be possible?
Yes, just visiting the national parks. I think we've gone to 23 of them out of 48, something like that. But just this past year, we went to Acadia National Park, and it was simply amazing. Before that, our favorite was Grand Teton. It's just gorgeous. It's so beautiful. When we were growing up, neither one of us went anywhere. Our parents didn't travel. We just stayed home. And then even once when my kids were little, because we've both been remarried, so when my kids were little, we didn't even travel. And then there's a lot of people that are homeschooling and taking their young kids in the RV and just traveling, and it would be such an amazing experience. And when we started in 2017, nobody was talking about full-time RVing, and even at that time. So now there's just since the pandemic, there's just so much more, and families are getting on the road, working remotely, and it's wonderful that they're able to do all that now. But yeah, just visiting the national parks, and some people have no desire to visit a national park, and that's fine. Some people would rather visit, Capitol buildings, just visit off the road, off the wall, side things, roadside attractions as they call them. But yeah, it's just the parks. That's our biggest thing, the scenery. It's out west versus, because we live in the east, and when we go out, we've been out west 3 times, and there's still so much to see. It's such an amazing country. And I'm sure Europe is like that too.
I think
I've
that is, an incredible realization that you get that, as we kind of touched on it, so many people travel to so many incredible places, and you can feel a little bit of the FOMO. It's like, oh, I would love to go to Iceland. I would love to go to New Zealand. I would love to explore all these places. But similar to you, like even just a year on the road made me realize there's so much in just Spain, in just Italy, in just Europe that we'll do for years of exploration. And there's so much. And that makes you think like, do I really need to, consider flying over to the US, flying over to Canada, going to places that everyone says is on the bucket list and you have to go and you see them all over your social media? Or for me, going to a random Italian town that is on no one's wish list because no one pretty much in the world knows it exists. And yet being absolutely mesmerized by the beauty and being the only tourist here because I'm out of season and it's just the locals and maybe one or two random vans and me, and having the whole of magic of a different place. And I think the same with national parks, parking, especially with the van, I get the option to park in so close to the mountains, so close to incredible beaches for free, because you can just tucked away in somewhere and in a stealth mode, just hide and survive. So I think it's an interesting perspective, definitely for this lifestyle.
And that's the difference between you and us, because you can just, like you said, tuck away, and it's not noticeable. It's just a van, whereas we're kind of big, so we're noticeable, definitely. I don't need nobody knocking on the door in the middle of the night.
One thing is when you settled, you living in a town or a small town, big city, it doesn't matter. You've got your neighbors, you have your job most probably, and you have your connections, you have your social life. You know which theater to go to, you know which restaurants to go to, you know you know which shops to buy what from, and you obviously then build a network of friends and connections. But when you're more mobile, it's a little bit more difficult to have these connections other than your family, because you know where they are, so you can go visit them. And I have heard a lot of the YouTubers are saying, what an amazing community it is, and meeting up with people and sometimes meeting up with them somewhere else. But how have you found almost having that social connection, having the, knowing, meeting up with people, meeting up for a coffee with somebody, and having a chat. It's going to be a little bit different and maybe a little bit more difficult than when you stationary somewhere. How do you have a social life? I'm assuming you meet other people. I mean, I would just lock my doors and, hey, I'm glad I don't have to see anybody. But I do know that we are creatures who like to have people around us, even if it's one or two. How did you deal with, leaving your social circle and moving somewhere else and then being on the move? How do you connect with people, and or other RVers or scooty buses or anything? Is how have you managed to have that social interaction?
Well, like take for instance, right now, because the huge RV show was just this past month in Tampa. There's a lot of uh people here in Florida, snowbirds. So everybody that we've met is super nice. So what we do is we'll put out on our social media, like somebody just put out, well, where is everybody's, located? Post where you're located and we can get together. So, and that's what we're doing right now. Another thing is RV rallies. I don't know if you do that in Europe or not, but like we're going to one in May, which is going to have 175 of the Super Cs, like we're in. And this will be our third year going to it. So we've met a ton of people there. We all keep in touch, hey, where are you going to be? What's your plans for the summer? And then we'll post where we're going to be. If there's a meetup, we do a meetup. There's just everywhere we go. We're in Florida. We went to South Dakota, which is like way up there in the northwest corner. And some guy came up to us because our RV is red, so it's very noticeable. And he came up, he's like, "Hey, I know you. We were parked two spots down from you in Florida." And it's like, "Oh, holy," and we remembered them, because he had a motorcycle on the back that had fallen off. And it's like, okay, we know who you are. And it's just like amazing that people will remember you from the other side of the country. But everybody, you try to get together. You sit outside. You'll have, a campfire, or you do virtual calls like we're doing right now. And some people will do like a virtual campfire and just get together that way. But it's just the community is so amazing, and everybody's just so nice. I mean, you do get that one Karen, as we call them here in the US. I don't know if you call them that there, but you can't. We actually have more friends RVing than we did when we lived in a house.
And I think this is such an interesting point on, I don't know, the human nature and genuine human kindness. Because I think that for lots of people, when they see someone going to, live on the road, especially if it's solo female like myself, there's lots of fears around, the dangers. And I'm not saying that there are not possible dangers around this lifestyle, but then you realize that there's so many lovely, kind people around that if you put the energy out there, that not only the community of van lifers, but also the random strangers. I had an experience a couple of weeks ago in Italy where out of nowhere we had a snowstorm and we snowed in at a car park, like a caravan park, like one of those. We have free parking with some hookup, so it's free. It's not organized, but you have some facilities there. And I realized in the morning that I can't open my door, the sliding door, because it's frozen. I can get out, crawling over the seats. So I did get out, and I kind of was like looking, trying to pull. And out of nowhere, a lovely Italian gentleman just came over and helped me. We could not understand each other a bit. My Italian is not good enough, but he quickly came with help, and we pushed and pulled together, and we sorted it out. And these occasions happen more and more and more and more. And I think it's a wonderful reminder of overall that there's so many wonderful, good human beings out in the world, even if you don't speak the language, even if you don't know each other, even if you have a similar lifestyle or not. That for me, it's a wonderful reminder of the goodness in the world in people.
Yes, absolutely. And that happened on our first trip as well when we first started. Our lights weren't working. So we got to the campground, and the owner, it was actually the owner, he came over with his tester light and he helped us figure it out. And it's like, it's just amazing. The community is amazing. Everybody's willing to help everybody.
It sounds really special, especially like you said, the nomad community, or the community on wheels, or whatever that, that you want to call them. But it's almost because you having this experience, it's like a common denominator, and then you just learn and reach out and just build these relationships in different ways. And I guess that's one of the great things with technology. And you can stay connected with people through WhatsApp and find out where you are and pin, this is exactly where I am, and park up next to them or meet them up. So it sounds really amazing. And yeah, I'm still on the idea of being in a home on wheels, but I think realistically, at this moment in my life, it's not for me. But I do love the idea, and I really get it. And just any listeners, if you see a red RV in the States, and I'm assuming there's more than one, but if you see a red one, it might be you. But you also said that you help people to transition from brick and mortar, to wheels and tin. So I'm assuming that you have a way that people can connect you. So if some of our listeners are thinking, this is something I want to take the leap or find out more about it. I want to get it out of my head and into a reality and see if it's possible. Where can people find you?
People can find me on my blog, lifeintherv.com. I'm on Instagram, Life in the RV blog, and Facebook as well. I do have a 6-month coaching program that helps people transition to the full-time RV living lifestyle. And you don't have to do it in 6 months. You can take the program and do it next year if you want. But it helps you to know what you need to know, where we knew nothing when we started. We also have a decluttering summit coming up, decluttering downsizing summit coming up in March. They can sign up on the blog for that. So this way, if you're not ready to transition till next year, you can start decluttering now, because there's always lots of stuff to declutter. And it helps you with the mindset as well.
That's awesome. And we'll obviously make sure to link all those links, connections to you in the footnote so people can find you and connect with you. I want to say a huge thank you for being here with us today and sharing your journey, your experiences. And one last question that I love to sneak in always is, obviously we talked about so much of the joys and beauties of the van life. And I'm curious to know, at this point right now in where you are in your careers and lives, what it is that really gives you life.
Just being able to see the grandkids and my kids and his son whenever we want, just pack up and go. Like I said, yeah, we celebrated my youngest grandson's 11th birthday. A week later, we were in Kansas to celebrate my oldest grandson's graduation. Now, if we lived in a sticks and bricks house, we wouldn't have been able to do that, because then we'd have to find somebody to watch the dog and, like I said, take care of the pool, cut the grass. And this way we just pack up and go. And there's nothing like the feeling arriving there and having your grandkids come rushing over and saying, "Grandma, Grandpa," it's amazing. The RV living life is just amazing. As you know, with the van life, there's nothing beats it. And you need to get on that schoolie there, because I think that's what you want.
And it's also, when you're traveling, you always have mattresses, if you're staying in hotels, that are too soft, too hard, too lumpy. So you have the right pillows just the way you like them, the right duvet just the way you like them, and the right mattress, because these are always things that you realize as you get into the bed, it's like, this is not my bed. So at least your bed goes with you. So another really positive about RV life. But thank you, Mary, so much for sharing your time with us today, for sharing your stories and your experiences of what you've experienced, with RV life, and allowing our listeners to get more of a feel. They've obviously heard from Lenka and her experiences, but it's a different experience because you're on a different continent. a different vehicle, been doing it longer. So it's always nice to hear a different perspective of an experience that is a common experience, if that makes sense. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us today and just being with us in your
Thank you
little
both for
RV.
having me. Yes, thank you both for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And for our listeners, what have you got from today? Are you now thinking, oh, I need to declutter. I'm going to start looking for a camper, a van, a schoolie bus, a double-decker, an RV, a caravan, whatever it is. Is this something that you're thinking, you know what? I've been thinking about it enough. I've been looking at people on YouTube doing it. Now it's time to bite the bullet. Or have we just planted that idea in your head and you're starting to think, oh, maybe this is something for me? We would love to hear your stories, your experience, and any aha moments that you got through this conversation today. And until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.